Today, we're going to talk about this video from CNN titled Obama and Harris Publicly Rebuke Trump's Second Term Actions. And you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of what I was thinking about when I was reading Democracy Playbook 2025. Yes, you heard me correctly. U.S. congressional Democrats and Democrats across this great nation are using the Democracy Playbook 2025, which essentially says to resist at all costs anything the Republican Party does. Because right now, the Republican Party, they're in charge of the White House, they're in charge of U.S. Congress, and there are about at least 25 Republican governors across the United States. And so you subtract all the Republicans, and all you get is Democrats resisting what Republicans are doing, whether right or wrong. And you get these talking points on MSDNC and CNN and ABC and CBS. You get all these folks online on the network talking about how Trump supporters are suddenly regretting their vote in November 2024. That could be furthest from the truth. Furthermore, what I'll say is, you will never hear me say or any other Trump supporters say that they agree with 100% of what Trump does and says. Of course, I agree with shutting down the U.S. northern and southern border. Yes, I agree with fentanyl, shutting down the trafficking of fentanyl into our great nation. Yes, I agree with deporting illegal aliens that entered into this country illegally. Do I have some questions about the tariffs? Yes, I do. Do I have some questions about other things that Trump has proposed or has proposed? Yes, I do. Signalgate is something else that I don't agree with. I think that somebody should be held accountable. But the truth of the matter is that the Democratic Party has no leader. You had Cory Booker, who so-called filibustered for 25 hours on the Senate floor, did not accomplish anything but self-adulation and people patting him on the back, but he didn't do anything for the American people, in my opinion. And so in this Democratic leadership vacuum, here comes Barack Obama and Kamala Harris to the rescue. But I don't believe that they can do anything better. Comment in the comment section and let me know your opinion below. But without any further ado, let's get with the video.
Former President Barack Obama is sharply criticizing President Trump's economic policies and calling the Trump administration's moves targeting President Trump's political opponents unimaginable. President Obama also has a message for his fellow Democrats saying, and I'm quoting him now, "We're in one of those moments when you know what? It's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit," close quote. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is also weighing in, saying President Trump's actions have been largely predictable. Listen.
Each day in these last few months in our country, and it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things, I'm not here, so I told you so.
She said, "I told you so." Joining us.
Hey, we dodged a bullet, folks. We definitely dodged a bullet with Kamala Harris. And Barack Obama, I don't think is any better, in my opinion. You probably heard about less than 1 minute of that clip. I'm going to play more, but what I want to get into is what Wolf Blitzer said, the white guy with the gray hair and the glasses for CNN. He basically said Barack Obama was coming out criticizing President Trump about the way he is going after his political opponents is unimaginable. Oh, like the way they came after Donald Trump with lawfare and bullets, by the way, right? That's number one. That's one key takeaway right now I want you to come away with. The second key takeaway is that you heard Kamala cackling Harris talking about, we knew what Trump was going to do, and I hate to say I told you so. Well, I mean, he's only been campaigning for a little over a year. He out-campaigned most politicians in my lifetime. I think he campaigned more than any politician that I've ever known in my lifetime. I mean, he went from city to city to city to city and got shot at. Okay? So, listen, on that campaign, he said what he was going to do, right? He said what he was going to do. I don't mean to be over dramatic about it, but I'm like, yo, what's going on here? And he said he was going to close the border. He said he was going to put tariffs on Canada and Mexico if they didn't stop the fentanyl in the U.S. northern and U.S. southern border crossings of illegal aliens. He said he was going to conduct the most mass deportation in American history. He said that he was going to keep the Trump tax cuts in place. He said that he was going to minimize the Department of Education's role in education. He basically said that he was going to look for fraud, waste, and abuse and use Doge and Elon Musk to do it. Okay? And guess what? When you downsize the federal government, guess what happens? Budgets get cut and people get fired. Come on.
She said, I told you so. Joining us now, CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Paul Begala. Paul, thanks for joining us. President Obama also called out the silence from Republicans about the economic turbulence here in the United States and President Trump's attacks on his perceived enemies. What do you make of what we heard from the former president and the former vice president?
Well, President Obama is probably the most popular politician around.
Not more popular than Donald Trump.
59%. Donald Trump never had a day in his whole life when he was at 59%. It's easier to be an ex-president. It is. And I think one of President Obama's great gifts in politics is timing. He's not out there in your face every day. He's the way Trump has to be. He's the president, okay? But he picks his moments, and he knows what he is doing. He's the best sense of timing I've seen anybody since Ronald Reagan. And he is connecting right now. And it is both these grocery store issues, these cost of living issues, which is the most important. That's what's driving everything now. But also these more existential issues about our freedom. When you see people taken, handcuffed, and shipped to some hellhole in a prison in El Salvador without any due process, I'm glad Barack Obama is speaking out. I will also note, so is Joe Rogan. So if Donald Trump, okay, he's losing Barack Obama, he's also losing Joe Rogan, the very popular podcaster that Mr. Trump went on his show. Because Americans don't like that kind of lack of due process, and they sure don't like the costs going up at the grocery store the way they are.
I'm going to stop it right there. Barack Obama deported more illegal aliens than Trump ever did. That's number one. And Barack Obama was following the law. The federal U.S. law that when a person doesn't go through legal ports of entry and they cross over through Eagle Pass and other unauthorized areas along the U.S. southern border, it is illegal. Now, the law does state that when on your first offense, it's a misdemeanor. But when you do it a second time or a third time or a fourth time, it becomes a felony. And you're going to be deported, right? That's number one. Grocery store issues. Now, I was going to pull up some stats. I'll probably leave it in the description below when I post the video. But the February Consumer Price Index which is kind of tracks inflation or in step with inflation, rose 0.02% for the month of February. It was, I believe it was 0.04% the month of January, or somewhere around that number. For the month of February, economists were predicting February CPI, Consumer Price Index number, to rise by 0.03%, which it did not. It came in at 0.02%, which is a 0.01% difference. It came in under the estimate. So the article that I read earlier suggested that inflation and the rise of prices are slowing down and stabilizing and moderating, and hopefully when the March numbers come down, I mean, maybe the tariff situation may not help things at all, but the tariff situation is will affect inflation, I believe. However, we're doing that for totally different reasons, right? But we'll see what the March numbers say. But for now, inflation seems to be moderating and stabilizing, and the hope for all Americans, not just Republicans, is for the trend to continue to go down, right? And do not forget that the president has been in power for around 60 days, maybe a little bit over 60 days, compared to 4 years of disaster from the Biden administration with the Inflation Reduction Act. They gaslighted people and called it Inflation Reduction Act, and all it did was create more inflation. And then you have other regulatory actions against the coal mining and oil producing industries that stifled and blocked growth and production, making barrels of oil go through the roof. And then when we're at the gas pump, we're wondering why we seeing stickers of Biden saying, "I did that," when gas prices were at $4.50, we're at $3.59 a gallon, somewhere around there. I think the most expensive in Virginia that I saw was $4.05. Places like California, they were well over $5, approaching $6, or in some places over $6. And so those are the 2 points that I wanted to make real quick, if you didn't mind.
A recent poll shows just 63% of Democrats view the party favorably right now. That's down from 81% at the start of the Biden administration. But according to Ron Braunstein, the columnist and good friend, these image problems might not matter much coming up in the 2026 midterm elections. He writes this. He writes that Democrats' best chance to recover would rely on their ability to, quote, crystallize public discontent with the actions by President Trump and the Republican-controlled Congress. You think he's right about that?
You know, it pains me to say this because I love the guy. Brownstein's always right, and he's right about this. The right now, by the way, I don't know how the Democratic favorable among Democrats is 63. I mean, we've known each other a long time. I've been a Democrat all my adult life. I wouldn't have a favorable opinion of my party right now. So, and yet the Democrats are winning. Stunning win in Wisconsin this week, where Ben Wickler, the state party chair, led his party to a really stunning, at the highest turnout I've seen in one of these Supreme Court elections. And so he's done a terrific job of coalescing that anger. The thing is, rage, which Democrats feel, is a wonderful motivator. It is. And so the Democrats are really angry. And by the way, that anger is spreading now. You know, it's not just, we're watching the stock market. It's not just the stock market, it's also the supermarket. It's groceries, gas, and rent. Americans who hired Donald Trump, the ones in the middle, not the hardcore MAGA, and we love them, but they don't move around a lot. The people who moved and put Trump in, they put him in because the cost of living was too high. And he is raising the cost of their groceries, gas, and rent. I think Chris Van Hollen, who you interviewed earlier on this broadcast, has the right message for Democrats, which is the great betrayal. You know, Donald Trump.
All right, so I'm going to stop it right here. right? He said a few things. There were two special elections that took place in Florida and then the other in Wisconsin this week, right? This week, I believe it was either April 1st or April 2nd. And the Republicans lost the state Supreme Court nomination or election against a Democrat in Wisconsin. However, there was a special election in Florida that I believe were replacing U.S. House of Representative seats or U.S. Senate seats that were vacated by individuals that took a higher position with the Trump administration. Republicans won in that state. And so Republicans are winning again and again. And look, you throw a dog a bone to the Democrats and they think that they're heading into the midterm elections in 2026 with a full head of steam. They still don't have a Democratic leader yet that the U.S. population can believe in, can trust to do the right thing. You heard them talk about rage and anger being at the fueling their base. No, it should not be. Emotions are for females, right? And look, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but emotions are for females, right? Men think logically. Do men show emotion? Yes. But in the heat of the moment, when you have a mature person running for office, governing, and things like that, emotion should not play any part of decision making, because you have to be clear-eyed, clear-minded to chart a clear path forward for a solution for your constituents and for the American citizen. And so I don't believe that anger and rage is going to carry the day, because it's emotion, and when those emotions run out, what else do you have? Do you have policy? Do you have anything else that's going to help the American people's pocketbooks? Because right now, what Cory Booker didn't do jack shit for the American people, but he gets a pat on the back for a marathon thing that he did in Congress, and he outdid, I think it was Strom Thurmond, who filibustered some civil rights act or whatever the case is. I should have dug a little bit deep in that, but that's as far as I know. But I'm being honest though. And so I talked about rage and anger with Wisconsin and Florida. He's talking about people in the United States are fearful of being snatched up and chained and shipped off to a hellhole prison. One last thing I want to say is that he said, this Paul Magala guy, this bald head guy with the brown tie on. I don't know who would wear a shit colored tie, right? I'm going to tell you something right now. That is a talking point that is misleading and disingenuous, because I'm going to tell you one thing right now. If you are a United States citizen, you are not going to be swept up in these ICE raids unless you are aiding and abetting an illegal alien that caused a secondary crime or tertiary crime that put the lives of innocent Americans in grave danger. And you want to talk about due process? Oh, they're getting shipped out without due process and all this other kind of stuff. Yo, F your due process. That's just another stupid ass talking point. And I bet you if MS-13 and Trinidad Araga was on your front lawn, you'd be calling the daggone cops, Mr. Paul Bagala. You get paid to talk bullshit online, and that's basically what it is. But you know who didn't get due process though? I'm gonna read the names of nearly 20 Americans that got killed or severely injured by illegal aliens in this country. These people who are dead and their daggone parents are grieving and crying as I make this video, did not get due process. They were preyed upon, they got bludgeoned, they got raped, they got chopped in half by an illegal alien that should not have been in this daggone country in the first place. Let's read the names off, and I'm going to conclude this daggone video, right? Because I get pissed off when baldhead people like this Paul Bagala, who don't know what the heck he's talking about, right? Jocelyn Nungare, 12 years old. Laken Riley, 22 years old. Rachel Morin, 37-year-old. Ruby Garcia, 25-year-old woman. Nathaniel Nate Baker, 21-year-old. Elizabeth Medina, 16-year-old. Jeremy Caceres, a 2-year-old boy. Alex Wise, 10-year-old boy. Christopher Gadd, right? Doesn't say how old he was. Gloria Coscio, doesn't say how old she was. She died. Dominic Durden, 30-year-old 911 dispatcher from Moreno Valley, California. Sarah Root, a 21-year-old from Omaha, Nebraska, killed. Jamil Jazz Shaw Jr., 17-year-old from Los Angeles. Kate Steinel, 32-year-old. Brandon Mendoza, 42-year-old police sergeant. Ronald Da Silva, 43-year-old from Linden, New Jersey, killed by illegal aliens that should not have been in this country in the first place. And Paul Bagala is talking about, oh, these people are being shacked up and shackled and shipped off to El Salvador or to their country of origin. So what? They are here illegally. They are here illegally, and it is the law to deport illegal aliens. The president has that authorization under federal law to do this. So, listen, thanks for watching. I'll check you out later in the next video. Thank you.